Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about Matthew 22 verse 40. I want to read you just the whole passage or most of it so that we'll put it in context. So we'll start with verse 35 and go to 40. And one of their number, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. 36, Teacher, which kind of commandment is the great and important, the principal kind in the law? Some commandments are light. Which ones are heavy? That's what he was asking. And Jesus replied to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul and all your strength and your mind, your intellect. This is the great and most important principal commandment and the first commandment. The second one is like it. Verse 39, you shall love your neighbor as you do yourself. And then verse 40, these two commandments sum up, and upon them depend all the law and the prophets. I want to talk today about verse 40. These two commandments sum up, and upon them depend all the law and the prophets. What is he talking about? Okay, so let's look at this. We're looking at verse 40 of Matthew 22, all the law and the prophets. What is he saying? Well, let's look at all the law first. The law was the 10 Commandments, but included with that, when they talked about the law, it included the Torah, which had 613 different things they had to do. And so this was what the law was talking about. The 10 Commandments with everything else included with that. And the prophets, when it says and the prophets, he's talking about all the prophets in the Old Covenant that were pointing to Jesus. They were talking about Jesus. They were saying what was going to happen, who was going to come, what things were going to be like, but everything was pointing toward Christ. All the prophets were pointing toward Christ, okay? So that's what it means when it says all the law and the prophets. So I want to look at the two places in the scriptures that write out the law, the 10 Commandments, are Exodus 20, verses 2 through 17, and Deuteronomy 5, 6 through 21. So he's saying these two commandments are important because upon them hang all the law and the prophets. So all the law and all the prophets are hanging on those two commands. Let's look at those two commands. Number one, we said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And number two, love your neighbor as you do yourself. These are the two commands. Now, hanging on those two commands are all the law and the prophets. See, they're hanging on those two commands. But look at this. When we look at this first command that Jesus gave in that discourse, he said that the first and most important commandment is to love the Lord, right? Well, if you look at the first 5 of the 10 Commandments, they are showing us how to love the Lord with all our soul, heart, mind, and strength. Number 1, you were to have no other gods before him. No other gods at all would be ideal, but he's saying no other gods before him, okay? Number 2, you're not to make any graven image, okay? Because he wants you to commune with him alone. He doesn't want you to worship these images and think that those images are him. Number 3, you're not to take the name of the Lord in vain. This can mean cursing and expletives and profanity, but it can also mean do not take the name of the Lord and then not follow him. Don't take his name as a believer, as a follower, and then don't follow him. Turn out to be a goat. Number 4 is to keep the Sabbath holy. This was so important because in the Old Covenant, people were put to death, y'all, for breaking the Sabbath. Okay, that's why the Pharisees were so ticked off with him, because he did all these things that were breaking the Sabbath. But they didn't know that he was the Sabbath. Jesus Christ is the Sabbath. So they didn't know that. But anyway, number 5 is to honor your parents, because God has given those parents to you, and he chose the parents you would be born to, and he wants us to honor our parents. So when we do all of these things, these are many ways that we can fulfill this commandment. Do you see how all the first 5 of the commandments have to do with loving the Lord? And then the second commandment, love one another as you love yourself, has to do with the second half of the 10 Commandments, numbers 6 through 10. What do these tell us to do? They tell us to do things or not to do things in relation to other people, right? Whereas all of these are in relation to the Lord and His design and everything about Him. And our parents are representations of God in a way when we're young. So, but let's look at love one another. Number 6 is do not murder, do not kill, do not slay another human being. Okay, another human. That's number 6. Number 7, do not commit adultery. If you're married to someone, do not run off with someone else. Number 8, do not steal. Do not take what doesn't belong to you, because God will provide for you. Number 9 is do not lie or bear false witness. God is a God of truth, and He doesn't like lies. And number 10 is do not covet. That means just wanting what someone else has. Okay, but I just want you to see that this first commandment, the greatest commandment, lines up perfectly with the first 5 commandments of the law. And then the second commandment, love one another, lines up with the second half of the 10 Commandments, which talks about things that we should not do in relation to other people. So this is how all the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments, because these commandments are the same as these. The 10 commandments are the same as the 2 commandments that Jesus gave in that passage we just read. And the prophets hang on these commandments because this is the law of the Lord. This is the law of Jesus Christ. And all of these prophets were prophesying about the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And this is His law. Love Him and love others. So I just want you to see how this verse here in Matthew 22, verse 40, all the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. All the law, this and this, hangs on these 2 commandments that Jesus gave. Also, the prophets are hanging on these 2 commandments. All right? So I just wanted to go over that and make that point today. And I hope you all are doing well. And I hope that you will leave questions or comments if you have anything to say. This is a free channel. You can say whatever you want. You can disagree with me. You can say whatever you want. There's freedom. But if there have been people that are really Satanists and different people who've said they're the devil, and I'm not going to post those comments, but anyone in the normal range of comments, you're welcome to leave whatever comments you want. But I just thought this was really interesting and I wanted to share it today. So you guys have a blessed day and I'll see you soon.